All right, guys, welcome back to another production meeting. With me, as always, is Ryan, Alex, and Matt. How are you guys doing this week?
Pretty good, dude.
Dude.
What I want to go ahead and give a little recap of what I've watched. It's still not a lot compared to Matt's like avalanche of 19 films of last week. But I mean, for me personally, who always takes a while to watch anything, I think it's a pretty good mark. I'd already seen it, as you guys know, Interstellar, but I watched it again. I want to say for like the third time, and I don't think it was as good as when I first watched it because it's got that new factor, but it's still phenomenal. I totally forgot that Hans Zimmer was the guy behind all the score, and I was like, this score is like making this so much more epic than I remember. And then I totally forgot the ending, and I was like, oh yeah, that's what happened. So that actually added some goodness to my viewing because I was like, I don't even remember what happened. So I watched that. You guys know that I finally sat down and watched Memento last night, and it was okay. I think what you guys were telling me that, like, because I was I was comparing Tenet to that in terms of confusion, and I was like, no, I pretty much got this movie. Like, it was a little hard to remember all the pieces because of the way they set it up, but otherwise, the train of thought that this story goes into, I followed all the way through. So I was like, yeah, you guys are wrong. Tenet is like miles ahead of it in terms of confusion. Then what? We watched Bly Manor, finished that as we all have here. Watched the trial, and then we started watching Hill House because none of us had seen that yet, so we went back and watched that. And I didn't realize how many the same actors are in both. I'm like, oh yeah, hey, that's that guy from who is this person and that's that daughter's this person. So that was pretty cool. What else did I watch? Nothing. I did finish Marvel. I told Clint about this a couple of days ago. I finished the Marvel PS4 game, and not the greatest. You can tell that the multiplayer is kind of the main focus of this game, and even that's not that great. The loading time is horrendous, and it just feels unpolished. It kind of it shines for Sony that they know what they're doing because they have Spider-Man, so they don't want to screw it up, and they make sure that their game is really polished. So that says a lot about them as in terms of game development. So that was good. Been doing that, and that's pretty much my recap.
Woo. Sweet. I didn't make a list this week, man. So what? I didn't make a list. So I watched a bunch of horror movies, all of which I have seen already. Because I know, Ryan, you were like, what new things did you see last week? And I'm like, no, I'd seen all that stuff before. So, but I will say this. We did watch on Saturday and Sunday, we watched all of the Saw movies from number 1 to number 8, I guess. And as someone who's only seen, like, I think the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th one, is that right? Once or twice, and I've seen the first 2 quite a few times. I've never actually watched them all, and it's actually, I don't want to call it impressive, but the way that they connect all of them together is kind of smart. Kind of dumb too, but also kind of smart. So I think that's cool. So if you're going to watch the Saw movies, I would recommend watching them all in order, just so you don't get lost and so that you can understand what exactly is going on, or at least try to understand what's going on. I watched a bunch of other like random horror movies. The Fog. We had a day where we watched The Fog and The Mist, just because we wanted weather-related horror movies. The Fog is okay. The Mist, not so much. What else?
Has anywhere in your list been? I'm surprised you haven't mentioned this. Wrong Turn, because that's one of my favorites.
We watched the first two Wrong Turns. I want to say 2 weeks ago, maybe. I might have missed it. I know we definitely did, but we definitely watched the first two Wrong Turns.
Is that the Deliverance ripoff?
Yeah, basically, kind of, sort of.
Okay.
They're really, not horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like I want to say there's 5 of them now.
Yeah.
The first 2 have some merit to them. And then after that, it just
directions.
Yeah.
I would agree. Yeah, after the first couple, it's like it's not really worth investing your time.
Yeah. I haven't been playing any video games really. I started playing because they're having a Ghostbusters event, and that made me excited. I reloaded Rocket League, and I haven't played that in like 2 years. And now I've got Ecto 1. I'm flying down the court, missing the balls.
Oh, so it was you and that other guy playing, right?
Yeah, it's me and the other guy. 1-on-1, man. So it's pretty solid. It's fun playing as Ecto 1. I enjoyed that. So that's what I've been doing. And aside from those movies and watching what we were going to talk about this week, that's about it.
Now, Jigsaw is number 8, right? Or is Jigsaw by itself?
Maybe. There's 7 actually, because I think Jigsaw is 7. And then Jigsaw is it's part of the whole story. It's just not called Saw, 7. And there's actually a new one coming out. Well, it was supposed to already be out. Spiral. Which I'm sure it's going to be sort of connected. I tell you what Jigsaw is about, but it's kind of a spoiler.
Okay.
I love one franchises that just start changing the names, but they're all just relatively the same name.
Yeah, when I noticed that when they did the title card for Jigsaw, the first thing they put up was Saw, and then they just kind of lit up Jig like right in front of it, just so it'd be like, hey, I don't know why I guess they wanted it to be different, but it takes place in the same world, and it's, spoiler alert, a prequel, so it's okay.
Yeah, because it says here that there's 7 of them. The final chapter is number 7, and then Jigsaw.
Okay, so I was forgetting one then, but we watched them all.
Wow, these came out every year until 2010.
Which is it's really crazy because who's that? Is it James Wan who did that?
I know he produced them. I know he did like the first 2. Yeah,
well, I think he might be as a producer on most of them.
Yeah.
And I think he's one of the reasons the story is so concurrent. It goes with each movie, because a lot of these movies, they take place, I guess, I don't know if this is a spoiler, but they take place at the same time. So, which kind of makes it interesting. But I mean, it's good stuff. I mean, it's not horrible. I think I actually enjoyed them more watching them back to back to back to back, just because it was like a story that was happening. I mean, that music is a little overbearing and dramatic, though, but it was okay. Yeah. Whenever you get a chance to see the Dread Pirate Roberts like show up and murder people, it's a good day.
Ryan?
My list isn't quite as big as I wanted it to be. We rewatched a bunch of stuff that I probably won't go through. For the first time I went to theaters to see Honest Thief with Liam Neeson. Which I'll get back to. Watched Trial of the Chicago 7. I watched the 1933 horror film Supernatural with Carol Lombard.
I want to say Ryan was impressed with that movie. I think that's what that was.
I hate bashing on old movies, but this one was not good.
Oh, no.
Not at all. No, really messy. It's like an hour long. And I'm like, oh, great. You could put that time anywhere else. Like, just... Anyway, I watched the 1995 film Casper for the first time. I don't know how I missed that one. Didn't really care for it.
I'm pretty sure I saw that in theaters, mind you.
I know I did. This is with Christina Ricci.
Yeah, back when these guys were 20.
Wow.
Back when you were just a little sparkle, a little glimmer in your dad's eye, Alex.
No, I was about 3 years old.
But I ended up watching 2 Christina Ricci movies because I also watched the 2005 Wes Craven film Cursed, which is terrible. It's a werewolf movie that I never seen.
Yes, it is.
I was waiting for you. I was like, if he says this movie's good, I'm gonna be like, hold up.
I bought it in a 2-pack with Dracula 2000, and I legitimately like Dracula 2000.
I like Dracula 2000 too. It's a fun film.
It's like it's got so many problems, but it's really enjoyable. And hearing Gerard Butler play Dracula is actually kind of fun. Anyway, we went to theaters to watch the re-release of Nightmare Before Christmas, which had obviously already seen, but it was really nice to see it on theaters. That film looks great. So it's held up really, really well.
Yeah.
I went back to theaters again to watch The Kid Detective, which is a comedy crime drama that's out right now. I can also get back to. I am ashamed to say that I just watched Misery for the first time from 1990.
What?
I've seen most of it because AMC was a channel that I grew up watching. So I had seen like all of it, but I had not sat down and put it on and watched the whole thing.
I can feel that.
Where like I knew everything that happened because I've seen at least every scene from it. But there were little things that I got from the whole flow of it, and I didn't realize how much, at least the direction of the film played off like a Psycho-esque 1960s thriller, pretty much with its like suspense build up. So I really liked it. Watching it all the way through is definitely better than just watching all of it in parts. It's what you get for not sitting down and watching iconic movies. You think you know them. And then another film I'm ashamed to say I just watched this last week was the Swedish film Let the Right One In, which I bought.
So good.
I had heard of it. I was like, oh, that sounds great. I'll get to it one day. Never got to it. I found it for $2 and bought it, and it was really, really good.
Yeah,
so
it's a good movie.
I have not seen the remake. I kind of saw it existed and I dismissed it, but hearing you say that was as good, then I might check it out.
Yeah, I would say that it's a notch below, but I think that Matt Reeves does an excellent job trying to capture what the Swedish film was. And Cody Smith and God, what's her name, Matt? Yeah, Chloe Moretz. She does an excellent job. Yeah.
As an excellent of a job that Chloe Moretz can do.
True.
She's had a couple good-ish performances.
Hit girl.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, and I watched the pilot for Lovecraft Country. Just felt like it.
Yeah, see?
I heard the pilot was the best episode, so I might not watch anymore because it was a great pilot.
I love that pilot. I love it.
It was good.
But I don't want to watch anymore.
I watched the first 4 episodes. I liked the third episode. Third episode was pretty good. Fourth one was a little iffy, but I hear it gets even more bizarre.
Okay, I might keep it up. It's been a Lovecraft year. We've had like 3 Lovecraft adaptations.
Yeah. Color of Space, is that right?
Yeah, and Underwater was Lovecraft-ish.
Yeah. All right. Well, while you guys were doing that, I watched animated movies. The Death of Superman, which was okay. Maybe just being a huge comic book fan, I was more in tuned with the comic book version of this. Wonder Woman Bloodlines, which I thought was better than Death of Superman. I think maybe because I'm not a big Wonder Woman fan. I didn't really read a lot of her stuff, but I kind of enjoyed it. It was nice. And The Invisible Man. I finally got around to The Invisible Man from February. I actually really liked it. I think Lee Winnell is an amazing director when it comes to these horror movies. Kind of want to see the movie Upgrade now, since I heard that he did that. Was it good?
Yeah. No, it's no Invisible Man.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. But yeah, I think he did an excellent job with it, and I don't think that she was all that great. Like some of it was just a little like she was a little too non-horror typical. But like I thought that it was a pretty good movie. But yeah, that's what I've been watching. So we don't have any really news this week. We do have a few discussion things that I thought that we could talk about. First up is Ben Affleck. Apparently has been now signed some contract with HBO Max for more Batman films, his Batman apparently, and a TV series that is all going on HBO Max. I kind of dug Affleck as Batman. I know he's kind of a little rough around the edges. I kind of wanted to see what like he was gonna do because I thought his movie was supposed to be centered around Deathstroke and like introducing like some of those kind of characters. And apparently it's supposed to give like some sort of backstory to the Robin that's from Batman v Superman, which I think Snyder said was actually Jason Todd or Grayson, I think is what he said. So what do you guys think about this? I mean, are we giving Ben Affleck some more time as Batman?
I probably am the next in line for being a fan of Affleck as Batman. When I remember the teaser picture for when he was announced to be Batman, and at first I was like, "Oh, that's stupid. It's gonna be weird." And then it just kind of grew on me, and I was like, "Okay, you know what? I think." And I got glimpses of the suit, and I was like, "Okay, depending on how this goes, I think this has potential." And I'm like the only one here who actually liked Batman versus Superman, and I was like, I want to see more of this.
This is true.
Yeah. I want to see more of Affleck as Batman. I don't think he's gotten that fair chance to be the Dark Knight as, you know, a standalone film. So this is this is a whole series. Like, how many episodes is this?
It doesn't say. It just says
Okay.
sources have confirmed. This is from the Cultured Nerd, so I don't know how much of this we should take with a grain of salt.
Okay, so let's say it's like somewhere around the realm of 8 to 10 episodes ish,
Right.
with them all being about, I don't know, 35 to 45 minutes. I think I would be excited for it. I think it's a decent idea. But what I don't like is, and Ryan will agree with this because we've been talking about this via text. I think the more and more you involve or bring to light the Justice League whole thing, like them re-establishing, like this movie's like 3 years old now, so why do we keep trying to build this? I like the idea of them fixing it. I like that, but I think the more we hear about it and the more, oh, this is being thrown in there, this guy's be putting in, you know, Leto's now back, and I'm just like, no, this is not good. There's good publicity, and then there's too much publicity, and I think that's what's happening with this whole Ben Affleck thing a little bit. To a degree, I like the pros for me outweigh the cons, so I like it. I'm not into I don't know the comic book lore nearly as much as you do, but I'm still like, okay, depending on how they go, I'm excited for this.
Yeah, but I think that you're right, though. I think that like he wasn't really given a fair shake to be Batman, because let's face it, the 20-minute scene that he's rescuing one of the Marthas is like his only vision that you see of him as like Batman as we know it, and then like in the Justice League, it's like this remorseful, like maybe I killed the wrong person type thing, and it goes into this like way supernatural alien version of like who Batman really is, and I think that he wasn't really given a fair shake at it. So I'm kind of on board with this.
The one thing I would say needs to change, I mean, like one among many, I'm the one I can only think of, is I didn't like his cowl, how it like was attached to the rest of his body, so he had to do the old Michael Keaton thing and, you know, turn his whole body if he wanted to turn his head. That was a little goofy. So that's, you know, separate cowl, please. Otherwise, I can't think of anything right off the bat.
I I went through the motions like everyone else when Ben Affleck got announced to be Batman. I think everyone who heard that news was like, what? That's the worst decision of all time. And then you see him in the movies, and it's actually not bad. And you're right, Clint. They just haven't given him the correct opportunity to actually, I think, fully explore that character. The scripts and what they've shown on screen, it's kind of done him a disservice. And I think if this is true, and they do put a series out, I think that would give him more time on screen. And I think it would flesh out the character and make it better and give him a chance to shine actually in that role.
Yeah. Because it says that it's HBO Max project, and I thought that I read that it's going to be like a movie and then maybe like a series. With Ben Affleck on board, HBO series is working on the plot details. We can report that the big focus is being looked at for the series is a backstory for Robin, his death by the hands of the Joker, and how he gets to where he is in Batman v Superman.
Does it say who is being the front runner for directing it?
Probably Ben Affleck.
I was going to say, probably.
I'd be so on board for that.
Yeah, I mean, because that was the whole point of what the Batman was supposed to be. Is just like this was like Affleck's way of being like, okay, this is my story, and this is how I wanted to project Batman. And then he became an alcoholic, and they fired him. So, and then I think like I heard rumors that like him and Matt Reeves were not clicking on like what the plot details needed to be, and so they just went in different directions, and he stopped being Batman. So, I mean, I'd see what he wants to do with this. But like you were saying, Alex, the other part of this news is that Jared Leto is actually filming new scenes for Snyder Cut Justice League.
I feel like we should all let out a collective why.
Why?
Our famous segment, why do we need this?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on, man. I'm trying to think of like a good analogy. It's like he had a house and there was a few things that were messed up, so he decided that he was going to fix them. And then he just decided to like renovate the entire thing, but and just keep adding stuff in hopes to making the film better. And it's just getting ridiculous at this point. I mean, I know he has promises, and I know HBO is like, we need to get this out, and this could be awesome. But let's be real. I mean, you keep adding more and more things, there is a legitimate chance that this movie could be one hot mess. So I'm getting less and less excited thinking about this with the more stuff that I hear is being reshot or recast or whatever. It's super annoying.
Yeah. Because let's remember, like, this was supposed to be like a $30 million project that was just supposed to add like the visual effects to it. And that I thought that he said in April when this whole thing dropped that he wasn't adding anything, that he was just going to re-edit the movie, put it all back to the way that he wanted it, and that he was just going to do visual effects. And that the head of HBO Max was like, yeah, this is we're not adding anything. Like, that's ridiculous. Why would we need to add anything? And now there's rumors of like Martian Manhunter like popping up, and they're doing reshoots with all the cast except for Cavill. And now Jared Leto is back as the Joker. And somewhere I read like some little snippet that Kevin Costner now can't like confirm nor deny that he's coming back as Jonathan Kent. What?
It's too much, man. It's too much. I think it's a case of when you're I mean, Zack Snyder's not the one with the deadline, honestly, but for argument's sake, he kind of is. And it's a case of, the editor's work is never done. So, like when I would do school projects back in high school, I would, keep doing it and doing it and doing it. And I never thought it was done. I never thought it was, fully complete. And I think that's the case here. He's just like, man, I got to add this. I got to add this. No, this will be a good idea. We got to reshoot these with these people. And I'm like, dude, somebody needs to come in and just slap him on the wrist and be like, you're done. Stop it. Just stop it.
He's got that open checkbook, man. He's got that blank check.
And that helps too.
And then with this pandemic, no one's working. So he's just dishing out the money. He's like, hey man, you want to come do some work? Come on, man. Come on, Kevin Costner. Let's go in here. Let's film some stuff. Jared Leto, what are you doing, man? You want to do this whole Joker thing?
What was the original runtime for Justice League? Does anybody know that off the top of their head? Probably not.
I'm sure it's like 2:20 or 2 hours and 20. 2 hours and 20 minutes.
I bet you they're gonna add like another whole hour to this with all this crap added to it. I'm like,
the theatrical cut.
Yeah.
The theatrical cut.
It's like exactly
2 hours.
2 hours. Okay. Wow. It just felt longer for me.
Yeah. That everybody had that general consensus. But yeah, he's going to add so much, and it's taking a bunch of darts and just seeing what sticks, man. What do people like about this and what not?
Well, let's be optimistic about this for 1 second though, and I'm going to put all my pessimism. I'm going to push it in the closet right quick, and I'm going to be like, what if this guy is legitimately making something amazing? Like, what if he does have a vision for it, and he's getting all these people to come in to change it, and we're going to get maybe a completely different movie than what we saw already. And I know that we're harping on the fact that it's an already established movie. It's already been out for 3 years. But what if he actually is changing legitimately, 70%, 75% of this movie, and then like adding an additional like hour worth of content? I mean, it could actually be good. Now, if he works a miracle and puts it all together so that it looks good, that's another thing. But I mean, I feel like there's a chance that this could work. Now that's my optimism. I'm gonna reach in the closet and pull out my pessimism again. I'm
gonna reel back into reality.
It's not gonna work. It's probably gonna be really bad, but there's that little glimmer of hope. Maybe something good will come about from it.
Well, I mean, and to your point though, Matt, is like he has famously said that he is not using anything from Joss Whedon's cut. So that is pretty much the reason why he's reshooting like a lot of it. And I think what I read somewhere is that Whedon shot like 80% of other stuff. So
maybe that's his strategy all along. He just went in there. He's like, yeah, man, I just want to re-edit this movie. But he really just wants to refilm the entire thing. And he's like, I'm just going to re-edit. And he's like, hey, man, some things aren't working. Can I just get some more scenes? I just need to film a few things. And then once he gets everyone on like soundstage or in that green screen room, they're just going to knock it all out right there. It'll take them a couple weeks, 3 weeks, and they'll knock it all out. It's just all part of his master plan to reshoot this film.
No, it was the conversation probably went like Zack Snyder's like, hey, Joss, can you help me out here? You guys have done the MCU so well. Okay. He's like, oh, let me see that. And then gives him the drive that the movie's on. And he's like, oh man, that's where it belongs, in the trash. Now let's do this all movie. What's the 20% you're going to keep? The title.
The credits at the end. That is
the opening scene.
Yeah. That's right. All the credits.
So I am wondering, because the plan was for this to be a 2-parter. So I'm wondering if he's like creating like the whole second part to this without really telling anybody. He'd be like, this is the Snyder cut that is 4 hours long. And it's like, okay, this is both of the parts that I wanted to make. And here you go. So
growing more and more pessimistic by the day.
You know what make this amazing, though, is if they fired Leto, got Joaquin Phoenix, and been like, here, this is how you play Joker?
They're going to keep Leto, and they're going to add Phoenix, man.
There we go. 2 Jokers in this movie.
They're going to ask what Jack Nicholson is doing. They're going to ask what... if Cesar Romero wasn't dead, man.
I was about to say, he's dead, man.
They'd be like, come on, man. Get in your wheelchair. Come join us, man. We're having a all Jokers of the universe party.
I would be interested to see, because I know Jared Leto had nothing positive to say about Suicide Squad, and then he was like recently was like, yeah, I'd come back as the Joker, and like Jared Leto can act. He's got an Academy Award. Like, I would be interested to see if he took this as an opportunity to be like, yeah, let me just be better.
Well, that's the thing. I remember we talked about this where Jared Leto's performance actually really, like, shot for shot matched a lot of the source material for Suicide Squad. Like, compared to others who have taken on the role, compared to their source material, and I guess the overall direction that they were supposed to go with the Joker, he actually imitated the Joker the best, theoretically. So, I mean, he technically wasn't bad. It just was a weird Joker to start off with.
I think the character design and everything about the way he looked just kind of put people off the whole thing, especially coming, we just, fall in love with, Heath Ledger's character. I don't know if falling in love is, but actually really enjoy watching it. And then you get this and you're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, with like the grill and like the tattoos and everything else like that. Yeah, I think it was a little off-putting. But
plus, you get maybe 5 minutes, and it's quickly cut together.
Yeah,
hard to even tell where his performance goes there. I like his shoulder grabbing. That's very Jack Nicholson.
Yeah, he didn't even get any screen time in Birds of Prey. They're like, no, man, we don't need you in this movie.
That's probably smart.
That's probably smart.
It was a little boring.
But, which is funny because like David Ayer just came out like on Twitter and said that his cut of the Suicide Squad was amazing, and that's what Jared Leto's been like screaming for like the last year, and he's like, no, like you were bad in that too. So,
all right, let's do it, man. Let's just recut every movie that we can find, like old movies. Just go back and just start reshooting and recutting them together.
I would be interested to see how this turns out for like movies. I mean, the Superman 2 got its recut way later. How long later? So I would be interested to see if we can go back and just piece Suicide Squad together before they had a trailer company edit their movie, and go back and get Josh Trank's version of Fantastic Four 2. 2 also, not Fantastic Four 2. That's not a thing we're ever going to.
Nice.
I'm sure that Josh Trank probably burned all his copies.
I don't blame him. Just took his drive and properly ejected it until
until it was corrupted to beyond no recognition. Right.
But do you guys think that this is HBO's way of like just trying to get content and just like because I heard that this budget has now ballooned to $70 million.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Emphatically.
Which brings up another debate. I have read an article that it is said that one of the Disney investors has tried to push big tentpole stuff, i.e. Black Widow, the Marvel stuff, onto Disney Plus so that Disney Plus can build their library in comparison to what Netflix has. Just throwing this out there as like a question and kind of a debate to see if, do you agree, disagree? Do you think that Disney needs to start putting their stuff onto the streaming and bypassing the theaters, especially now that they're like focusing all their stuff on streaming?
Well, speaking as a theater employee, no. But objectively, no. I thought about this the other day. I was like, remember when I was talking to you guys about this was, a few years ago when like Best Buy was like, we're going to stop, or Target, I forget who, but they were going to stop selling physical CDs for albums. And you both were like, yeah, who's bought a CD physically anywhere in the last, except Ryan.
Ryan has, okay. Apparently.
It's okay, Ryan. I still do that on Amazon. What is that? I can't tell.
Backwards. It's Fantasia.
Is that?
Oh, Fantasia.
I thought it was Frampton Comes Alive, man.
Here's my copy of that, man. No, I'm just kidding. No, so just in the digital trend, it makes sense that they would try to build their library, because I'll be honest, when this service went up, what was it, about this time last year?
Yeah.
November 13th. Yeah.
I mean, it's not bare in the sense that like they don't have anything. Of course, you got the people like me, and definitely you guys who have grown up with a lot of the classic, Saturday morning cartoon kind of deals, and there's stuff for us, but as far as like newer decent content that just kind of catches your eye, yeah, they're a little lacking. So I get it. It makes sense. But honestly, we were talking about this a couple of videos ago where they can definitely, it's a good business strategy to have your stuff, have your content out, 2-3 weeks, maybe even a month in theatrical release, and then, charge some type of premium to have it, immediately right out of the gate after it's left theaters. So it's like yes and no. Like I wouldn't eliminate theatrically altogether. So it's like I'm in a mix. Like objectively speaking, I'm mixed about what they should just put out immediately on Disney Plus without theatrical releases.
Who made these comments? Does it say? Or
let me look it up. Because it was one of their investors.
Okay. Well, yeah, obviously. Because I'm wondering if it's like the head of the Disney Plus division or like somebody who's giving them a bunch of money. Of course, they want to lobby to get their tentpoles to their streaming service because that just means more money for them. Who knows how that works out for the grand scheme of things? But obviously, if you're working for Disney Plus, that's what you want. Now, if it's a good idea or not, I think I agree with Alex. I mean, we've talked about this before, where I think that the model should be in theaters for like 4 or 5 weeks, and then if you're going to put it on streaming, put it on streaming. There's just a bunch of issues going with that based on theaters, because they're going to feel like they're being cut out, and they're going to want to cut of that revenue after it goes to streaming. So I mean, that's something that the theaters and the studios and Disney will all have to get straightened out, if that is the case. But I mean, I don't see those people spending all those. I don't see Disney spending all that money to make a film and then just put it directly on streaming. I mean, obviously they did it with Mulan. Now, if that was a success, we don't know, because I don't believe those financials are public. But Netflix doesn't like. I mean, they have a studio, they make things, but they go out and they also purchase things to put out. They don't put that money in the development of everything. They go out and purchase films to distribute, and I think that might be a better thing for Disney to do, although that's not something that I think they could really do since they have their own branding. But I mean, I can't see it happening they couldn't just put everything on Disney Plus straight away. It doesn't make sense to me.
Right. And I mean, before I read this quote from, because it's Dan Loeb, I guess. Dan Loeb, who is a Disney investor. It doesn't say like where he is as far as the totem pole goes. But I think that you're right, though, man. It's like some of the stuff that Disney makes, especially like with the things that they've purchased now, Marvel, Star Wars, so on and so forth. That stuff needs to be seen on a big screen. Like I'll watch, obviously I'll watch Black Widow when it comes out to like on Disney Plus or whatever. And I'll watch like some of the Star Wars movies, but to see that stuff like firsthand, like the first time that you see it, like some of that stuff you need to see like on the big screen, Star Wars, Marvel. Like, I mean, just imagine trying to watch Endgame on your TV screen like that. I think it takes away from the impact that you have of like watching this from the first time. You know what I mean? Like Star Wars and like some of the, as crappy as these sequels are, which we'll get to in a minute, but like still seeing that stuff and seeing the Millennium Falcon fly on a big screen is something that I pay money for. You know what I mean? But it is Dan Loeb, and he was speaking with Variety, and it says, quote, my understanding is that the old line executives don't want to go over the top with their big tentpole movies, which is why they announced that they were pushing Black Widow and other movies to 2021. It just goes on to say about some of the stuff about with Microsoft and Amazon, and it says what Netflix has is this immersive subscriber base that allows it to invest in an enormous amount of content and motorize that to get more subscribers. Disney isn't there yet, and basically says that if Disney starts putting their stuff on a Disney Plus, they'll gain more subscribers.
Well, I feel like Disney Plus is kind of weird in itself, where I don't know what they have to have a solid line, like a baseline of subscribers, just based on people having children all the time. Like there has to be a baseline if their branding is so spot on that parents are going to get it just for their children, just so that they can watch it. Now I don't know how low or high that is compared to Netflix, but I don't know if that's something that they can really need to compete with unless they expand to their like more elaborate content,
Right.
i.e. like R-rated and PG-13 rated things. So.
But see, I think that's what they have Hulu for, because they're
Then
majority owners of Hulu.
yeah, so I mean, like I said, it doesn't make sense for me for them to like put something out there unless the model of charging people, you know, $30-$40 to see it works. But they have to get that straight with the theaters if the theaters ever come back. Knock on wood. But yeah, I mean, I think they're okay. I don't see their subscriptions dipping. There's definitely a baseline that's going to remain constant for them, just based on children being children. So,
right.
Yeah.
But I think that like Disney Plus came out at a weird time too, because I mean, it came, like Alex was saying, it came out in November of last year, and they promised stuff that was supposed to be coming out all this year, and then COVID happened, and all their like original content started to get pushed back. I mean, Falcon Winter Soldier was supposed to be out in August. WandaVision was supposed to be coming out pretty soon. Loki, all that stuff got pushed back, and I think they just kind of hit a snag where their original content is coming.
But I mean, everyone was hit with that. I mean, that's everybody.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's exclusive to them, and I just think you have to wait it out. And you're right; those big movies, and I know they put out Milan, like you said. We don't know if that was successful or not, but those big movies. I mean, obviously they can put Soul. You can watch Soul on your 50-inch television, and it would be fine.
Yeah.
But you know, those big Marvel blockbusters, you need to see those on the big screens. Those Star Wars movies, you need to see them on the big screens. Avatar, whenever it comes out, you need to see that on the big screen. I mean, James Cameron will lose his mind if that is not shown on a big screen. He would literally murder everybody. So they'll come up with a compromise, I'm sure, but those big budget movies will definitely be going to theaters.
Anything else, guys?
Yeah, I was gonna add. Remember, we talked about how like the actors and those involved in the production, you know, they're how cool are they going to be with the just, you know, going with the, you know, just subscription. You know, this is, I can't think of the word, but like this is the level that we're going to be at. So kind of live with it. Whereas, you know, if it has a theatrical release, obviously, you know, the sky's the limit. So yeah, there's that adds to the factor of, I don't think this is going to be pushed too hard in the all digital direction, you know, at least not anytime soon.
I think it's this billionaire, you know, philanthropist investor that's just like, hey, we should probably do this. That would be a great idea, just so he can hopefully get more money back from his investment.
Mm-hmm.
Probably. Ryan, any thoughts?
I can see it happening.
Short and to the point. Thank you, Ryan.
And if it does happen, I hope it's the case where we're going to get simultaneous releases where they'll release it on streaming and in theaters at the same time. So we'll at least get to see it on the big screen. But I could see Disney absolutely just doing this.
And this is, I don't know. I mean, I guess this is somewhat relevant. As someone, you're the only one of the four of us that actually has been going to the movie theater like a lot.
True.
And that's one of the main reasons for that is there's only one theater open around here, and it's AMC.
Yeah.
And they're only open, I think, for one set, maybe two set of movies during the week, and maybe a half a day on the weekend. How is the theater? Has the theater been busy? Have there been people there?
No. We had a mostly full theater for the capacity they could have when we went to see Nightmare Before Christmas's re-release. That was a full theater. That was a bigger crowd than Tenet. And if what I'm seeing from that, because that did really well on its re-release, Hocus Pocus did really well on its re-release, and Empire Strikes Back did. So if that's any indication, then it might be the case where nostalgia and prices are more incentivizing than people going to see new movies.
Or just plain content.
Yeah, I would be interested to see how some of these indie films. I know Kajillionaire just got its digital release like this last week, so I'd be interested to see how well that does in the next couple weeks compared to its theatrical run. To compare it, I mean that's obviously a little film, so it's tough to judge. I think Soul will be a big determining factor for Disney. I mean, I know that definitely caters itself more to being on a screen, but I think theaters really need something big to push people back into it, and I don't think December is going to be that unless Wonder Woman actually comes out on Christmas. So no, theaters have not been busy. We saw. I mean, I've been going at Thursday nights and Tuesday nights, so I've not gone like on a Friday night. So they might be busier than I'm accounting for it, because I've been trying to get movies as soon as possible or when I'm free. But even on Thursday night premieres, I usually see them with bigger crowds when new movies come out. And I keep forgetting the name. The new Liam Neeson movie, Honest Thief. There was like 4 people in that theater.
Taking
I feel
6
like
is not good.
I feel like Honest Thief is a bad name for a Liam Neeson movie.
It is. I keep forgetting it. We had 6 or 7 people in Kid Detective, including one of my managers. So
Nice.
All right, so like, what do we think the odds are that Wonder Woman is actually going to come out on Christmas?
Not good.
1 in 6, 1 in 7.
Yeah.
Well,
I give it a 45% chance.
Well, I know. I don't know if I know LA, or at least California said that their recreational parks, or the Disneyland parks and Universal can open up now with 500 people. It's 25% or 500 people, whichever is lowest. So 500 people. I'm not sure if that's for theaters too. I would assume so, maybe. So I mean, and I read somewhere that the New York theaters are starting to open back up. Some of them are. So I mean, and those are the 2 markets that we need to not guarantee, but to have a chance that Wonder Woman will be coming out on Christmas.
Yeah, I read the same thing that everything, like theaters around New York can start opening except for in Manhattan, like the city of the 5 boroughs.
I think
it's the start, man.
The thing that concerns me about theaters opening, or lack of the theaters opening, is that the crowds I'm talking about are in the second worst state in the U.S. to care about COVID. So if we're not showing up for theaters, how many other states are actually going to show up for theaters? Because like nobody here cares. So everyone should be going to the movies because no one. I've met people who legitimately don't believe COVID is a thing.
Well, I mean that is obviously I mean, if that's the case, then it's definitely a content issue, and I think we've talked about that a lot. So that's why we got to hold firm. That's why hopefully it'll be a Wonder Woman Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. All right. Well, speaking of Disney, I wanted to also ask you guys, since the sequel trilogy has been come and gone, and we know how well received that was, do you think that the sequel trilogy has basically shined a better light on the prequel trilogy?
You're talking about Star Wars, yes?
Yes.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
I'm also asking this because I watched the new trailer for The Mandalorian and it looks amazing. And I know you guys don't watch trailers, but screw you. I watched it and it's amazing. Sweet.
Okay. Now, what did you think of it?
Trailer? Looks great.
Yeah, it looks pretty good.
It looks more self-contained than I feared it would be so far. I mean, we're rewatching Rebels just in case. I'm getting like as much re-knowledge as I can in. But I mean, I'm hoping at least it'll gently lower people into all the stuff they're not watching out that's also on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Because I know every adult hasn't seen 7 seasons of Clone Wars and 4 seasons of Rebels.
Yeah. So
I think it looks great.
Yeah, I think it's good.
What I think we should do is take the sequels and just re-edit them to make better movies. We'll call everyone back in, get them on the sound stage.
Oh man, is that Zack Snyder?
We'll change who Ray's father is. Things will be great. It'll be fine.
You know, if you go on YouTube, I think they're still up on YouTube. I don't know if they've been. I'm sure they're demonetized at least. But there's 3 cuts of the prequels, or there's one of each prequel. That's like the I don't remember what it's called, but it's like the uncheesy edition that they've recut and taken out like everything that's silly in them.
Is that the one that Topher Grace did?
I have no idea. I didn't know that.
I'm pretty sure he's like edited like those movies, and I can't remember.
Yeah, I know there's like a cut of Phantom Menace without Jar Jar Binks. And I was like,
not Jar Jar.
I can redo these films. I don't think Jar Jar is the worst thing in that movie. I'm gonna say controversial things about Star Wars all day, but he's a character.
You said, do you think the sequels shine like a better light or make the prequels look better? Is that what you were asking?
Yes.
I think maybe. I also think time does too. Like going in, those movies hit a lot harder just based on expectations. And I think nostalgically they've gotten better. But to answer your question, yeah, definitely. I think you go and you just respect how original they are. I guess is probably the best part about it. And I mean, albeit the dialogue is not the greatest, and some of the acting is not the greatest, it still has its moments, and it's not. It's more corny than it is frustrating.
Right.
And the sequels are definitely frustrating. So now who's to say that could go the other way too? I mean, in 20 years, are we going to look at the sequels, after they've been recut and re-edited and put together to make better movies? Are we going to look at them more fondly? It could possibly be true. I'm just mad that I kind of wish, and there's not a world that this could happen because The Force Awakens had to get popular for this to happen. That The Mandalorian didn't come out sooner, like it wasn't made sooner, just so that they could see how that felt, like what it looked like, and then maybe put that into what they were making with the sequels a little more. So,
well, I asked the question because I think that we have a generational gap here. You and I, Matt, grew up with the original trilogy. The prequel trilogy was for our companions here, and I think the sequels kind of blended the both of them together. But I also kind of say this because if you do watch Rebels and you do watch the Clone Wars, I think it gives their prequel trilogy a little better light and kind of a little bit a better understanding. Because there's 7 seasons of Clone Wars, but the first 3 seasons are kind of childish, and then it gets a lot darker as it goes along, and it starts to fill in gaps that you kind of start I know that I asked when I originally watched the original or the prequel trilogy. So I mean, I kind of look at the prequel trilogy a little bit better now because of the information given through Clone Wars and how destructive the sequel trilogy is. I have a little bit of respect for Force Awakens, and I kind of did like Last Jedi, but Rise of Skywalker was just it was a hot mess.
Well, I think it goes hand in hand with just that all the material that's canon now that helps flush out that time period for Star Wars between the prequels and the original trilogy. I think it helps make it better just because all that's there. There's a lot that happens that series haven't been made about, video games haven't been made about, that could be taking place during the sequels that we just don't know yet. And if they flush that out a little more, maybe that would make the sequels better. But I don't think anything's going to make, Rise of Skywalker better, because that is, like you said, a complete hot mess.
Yeah.
I
don't know.
I see a pretty interesting correlation in the two trilogies. For a moment, if I pretend Clone Wars and Rebels don't exist, that's hard to do because you're right. Clone Wars and Rebels, Clone Wars especially, like, ironically, I don't think it improves Attack of the Clones at all. But it really, really makes Revenge of the Sith an emotional watch. But I think what helps the prequel stand out more, because each film, I think, is each trilogy is kind of on the same tier for me, where they've got one okay movie that treads questionable ground, one really good movie, and one really bad movie. But Revenge of the Sith manages to be that great movie at the end of the trilogy, where I think the sequel trilogy gets its great movie in the middle. Now, that's an unpopular opinion, but better than the last one.
Yeah.
So it helps the prequels that they end on a good note, because I think Attack of the Clones is similar to Rise of Skywalker, where it's just a structural mess. Like, it's objectively not a good movie. I grew up with it, and I knew it wasn't a good movie. I watch it, but I like Phantom Menace quite a bit. I think it's interesting. I think it's become more interesting now that Force Awakens has been criticized for just retreading similar ground. Now that people are like, oh well, at least this one did something different. I was going somewhere with all this. But yeah, I know it'd be interesting to see us if they tried to expand upon the sequel trilogy, but they would have to do it similarly to what we got with Clone Wars, where they'd have to take one film and kind of make it a sacrifice to make the other ones better, I think. And that'd probably be, I hope, Force Awakens, because I think Force Awakens can take it.
Yeah.
And maybe have something. I mean, I'm not saying I want like an animated show between these, but if we wanted to fill in the gaps between the movies, because there's some space between both movies there in the sequel trilogy. I just don't want it. I don't want more of it, really. I mean,
you know what would help fill in the gaps, Ryan? You know what would help? Probably a Star Wars show, maybe featuring The Rock.
I knew it would come up, and that's why I wore my Baby Yoda shirt, so I could just restrain myself for him, for my child. Gosh, I love Johnson so much, and I love Star Wars so much, and I really never want those two things to meet. So yeah, I'm much more excited for everything else that I've heard about Star Wars, or haven't heard about Star Wars, or might hear about Star Wars in the future, than the potential of one of my least favorite actors being in a Star Wars movie.
One day, Ryan, one day you will recognize the charisma that is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. One day, and it'll click and it'll dawn on you, and you'll be like, man, this is the greatest actor of our generation. Look at all the good films that he's been in.
When I meet him and have to lie to his face, that's when it'll click.
You just got to meet him. You can be like, hey, Rock, or I'm sorry, Dwayne, you were the bomb in Tooth Fairy.
Man, I loved you in Game Plan.
I gotta think of what film I would say I liked him in.
Come on, man. Scorpion King, right there. There you go.
I do.
CGI Rock.
And I think I only own like 2 Dwayne Johnson movies.
And both of them are The Tooth Fairy.
Jumanji and the second Mummy.
Yeah.
Gosh, Dwayne Johnson.
Oh man, what's the name of that movie that he was with Sean William Scott? Like his movie just.
Oh, The Jungle.
It's
got like 2 titles.
The Rundown.
It's a movie that's got like 2 titles. Yeah, The Rundown, and then I've seen it. I've seen it called Welcome to the Jungle, which is weird.
What was the other action movie that he came out? There was another one that was like right there at that time. When he has like a 2x4 walking tall.
Yeah, walking tall.
Yep.
Yeah. I like that. That's really good.
I like The Rundown. Like I think that's the only movie
I like that too.
I can
say
that I liked. Liked him in what?
Pain and Gain with Wahlberg and
oh yeah.
It's like, hey, that's probably one of the only things I would say was a good performance from him.
Ryan, would you watch a buddy cop movie featuring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Adam Sandler?
paying me to do this.
Called The Odd Couple.
Yes, I absolutely would. I would want to see how long I can get into it and who I hated more.
It's an act of self-loathing.
I can name more Adam Sandler performances that I like than Dwayne Johnson performances.
Wow.
Because
right.
Love and Uncut Gems are two, and I could think of one Dwayne Johnson performance that I like.
Do you count Moana?
No. But
he's Maui.
That's half a performance, and he's fantastic.
Oh man, I'm gonna start sending you some Dwayne Johnson like paraphernalia now. That I don't have. I gotta go find it.
Look, it doesn't help my opinion of him that the movie that the 2016 movie Rampage literally made me cry for totally unrelated reasons to the movie itself. But that was like one of the worst films I'd ever seen in my entire life. So it doesn't help that was just another big Dwayne Johnson vehicle. I feel like we were talking about Star Wars, and now we're talking about how much Ryan hates Dwayne Johnson.
I mean, to your point, I remember Matt going. I was working that day, and Matt went in, and he's like, "I'm gonna go watch this dumb movie, being Rampage." And then he's like, 10 minutes later, and he texts me. He goes, "This movie's dumb as crap."
I grew up. Rampage was one of my favorite video games as a kid. Like I played the crap out of that video game, and that movie is god awful, like horrible. Like Dwayne Johnson can only be so charismatic. But you get him and the stupid gorilla and the stupid alligator thing having these stupid fights in this stupid city and these stupid things happening. Awful.
Matt, that was so much better than the way I wrote it in my review.
Wow.
But anyway, I was reeling back to the topic at hand, which is the whole Star Wars prequel sequel.
But
thing.
we digress.
I am probably the most casual of Star Wars fans in this group. Like I like it, but it's like I'm not diehard or anything. Much like Ryan, I grew up with the prequels. I remember the Phantom Menace fondly. I mean, looking back, I'm still like, this is very political driven than it needs to be. Like it's all about the council and the republic, and nobody cares about this stuff. Like, come on, man, we want to see guys swinging light swords around. And then it brings that at the end, towards the end, with one of the cooler duels or fights in at least in the prequels. So that one's decent. I agree with Ryan. I like that. Do I consider it a great movie? No. But do I consider it terrible like everybody says? No. Funny enough, a couple months ago, I reread. I looked up the Phantom Menace, to see what recent articles I could find, and somebody was like, 20 years later or 21 years later, can we forgive Lucas for unleashing this horror on us? And got all the way to the. No, he at the end he was like, no, still enough time has not passed for not unleashing this terror, this atrocity upon us. And then I remember going to see. Attack of the Clones with my brother, and I went out of it going, I don't remember anything I just watched. That's how boring this movie is. It's so boring, terrible. Like probably the worst Star Wars movie in the entirety of the universe of Star Wars. And then like Ryan said, when you get Revenge of the Sith, awesome. It's because it has like such a great ending part with the emotional and the whole fight. I think that's what really a lot of people took out of that movie, and that's what they cling to, and that's what the better part of the movie is. And then Ewan McGregor, obviously, he's a good, Obi-Wan, so that drives a lot of the movie too. But I don't think that the sequels, in my personal opinion, have any bearing on the prequels. Because I've seen all three of them, all three of the prequels, all three of the sequels, and I'm like, none of these movies make me think any worse or better about these. If anything, it's those in-between movies like Rogue One and Solo. Well, Solo, not so much. Rogue One makes me look a little bit more Because that leads right into A New Hope. That sandwiches right between episodes 3 and 4. So that makes me look at it a little differently, but not really worse or better. It just makes me see it differently. So, but the sequels, they had a lot of potential. I like the first one because it was a little bit fan service, keeping it similar to A New Hope. Obviously, it's basically just a carbon copy of it. And then I remember leaving Last Jedi thinking it was good and better than the Force Awakens, and then my brain started being like, wait a second, there's a lot of wrong with this movie. I need to go back. And then I hated this movie. But there was a lot of potential there. And then I didn't think Rise of Skywalker was as bad as it's definitely not anywhere near a perfect movie. Let's get that straight. But I didn't hate it. I hate the idea that Rey is a Palpatine. That's so dumb. It could have been a lot better. She should have been an Obi-Wan, descendant or Kenobi. Sorry, and nope. We're gonna make her a Palpatine because that's edgy and kind of cool, and we can still make this character relevant, even though he should be nowhere near relevant anymore. He's done. So, between the two, which do I find better? That's so hard. I mean, they both have their extreme struggles. I actually would say maybe the sequels are just a smidge better. Just a smidge better. It's apples and oranges at this point. None of them are great. But
that's what I was about to say. The more that you talked, I'm like, these are kind of like apples and oranges here. Like their prequels are like CGI, early 2000s, late 90s CGI, like all over the place. Everything's shiny and fake looking. I mean, not fake, but not the greatest. And then, the sequels, we get a little more realistic. We get a little more puppet action in there. We get, some darker tones. So, I mean, they are completely different. I think when you say if it shines, if it makes the prequels look better, it just nostalgically does. But I don't know if it makes them look better. I think it just makes you appreciate them for what they are more. But I don't know if I could pick which one I like better, the prequels or the sequels, to be perfectly frank. I might go with the prequels just based on nostalgia, but I'm not sure.
But didn't Lucas directed all 3 of the prequels, yes?
Yeah.
But I've read, and obviously he directed the first one, but every single one of those, he actually did not want to be the director. He wanted somebody else. Like, obviously he wanted to have his creative say in it, but he did not want to be the main credited director. He wanted somebody else, I guess, with a little bit better, for lack of a better word, direction to, make these movies what they could have been. So I think we have to take that into consideration. Plus, obviously he has a little bit of the Zack Snyder kind of disease where he just keeps editing and editing and editing and editing, and then it's never done. And that kind of went into the Phantom Menace, where he kept adding weird things. Obviously nobody, thinks Jar Jar Binks is the best thing on this planet. So, he just constantly keep adding stuff that nobody really wants. So I take those into consideration. But I still think that the sequels are just, they're not better. They're about the same. It's all the same. Nobody cares. Everybody likes the original trilogy, and that's it. Everything after it is garbage, except for Mandalorian and the Clone Wars.
Well, I'm gonna end this conversation with 2 things. One, I prefer the prequel trilogies, maybe not so much for nostalgia, but I think the sequel trilogies lacked characters that we sympathized with. Like, for some reason, I kind of liked Rey until she was a Palpatine, and then I was like, okay, I'm done. I don't really care. Whatever. And second, I think they need to fire Kathleen Kennedy and have Dave Filoni just kind of take over. He's the creator of the Rebels and the Clone Wars, and now the Mandalorian with Jon Favreau, and I think those two pretty much get what this should be. as evident by The Mandalorian. So that's that.
I want to say one more thing. I don't think Jon Favreau is given enough credit for stuff these days. Because he kickstarted the MCU. He has gotten The Mandalorian to where it is now. And then there was something, you and I, Clint, we were talking about this. I forget what was the other project he was involved in, but I was like, oh yeah, he was involved in that too. So this man knows how to direct, but
Yeah.
I would say prequels over sequels, but Last Jedi over Revenge of the Sith.
Oh,
Nice.
I agree with half of that statement. I'll agree with half of that statement.
I think the movie you were forgetting about Jon Favreau was Elf. He directed Elf.
That was it.
Yes. Son of a
nutcracker. Dang it. We both thought the same thing.
Okay, so we're going to get to the reviewing side of our discussion this week. We forgot to talk about The Boys last week. So if we want to quickly just kind of give our thoughts. I thought that this was a way better season than the first one. It's a little bit more violent and over the top, and I think that I think it's going in like a very good direction.
Yeah, totally agree.
I know Ryan's all like, yeah, I've totally seen every episode, man.
It's been a couple weeks since I finished watching, so I'm trying to. I enjoyed the second season. I think it was on par with the first season. I don't know if I enjoyed it more. My only concern and the reason I don't think I like the second season as much is spoilers.
Oh,
there's somebody going around blowing up people's heads. I feel like they should be more concerned about this. Like, this is a big deal. Like, heads are just blowing up. Like your head, and I feel like they're not taking proper precautions. I feel like this is a big deal, and it was not referenced enough as to how big of a deal it was. And that was my biggest gripe with it. So,
yeah, I think they might segue that non-concern into season 3. Like, there's probably some type of plan or something. I don't know how season 3 is going. I'm kind of a mixture between you two. I think it's better than season 1. I don't think it's drastically better. I think the action was better. I think the story was just about the same as far as that drama factor. It was good. Yeah, Homelander is like the perfect, like, he's not really, I wouldn't call him a frenemy, but he's definitely an anti-hero. He's like a sublime person that you love to hate. And I think that's the driving force, because most of those episodes would end with him doing something weird or doing something controversial. So I liked it. I'm excited for season 3. Like way more than I am excited for season 3 of Umbrella Academy. Let's put that. Because I remember Umbrella Academy kind of left me like, I'll watch it, but I'm not like dying to see it. This one, I'm like, all right, I need to see where this goes. And poor the Deep. Man, that guy can't catch a break.
Right.
Oh, I thought of another gripe I had too. So, like, why can't Starlight use Stormfront's power against her? Like, doesn't she control energy? Doesn't she like soak it up
like electricity,
and like push it back out? Like, why doesn't, when she gets zapped, be like, no, thanks for all this energy, and then I'm gonna throw it right back at you, and then they can just lightning going back and forth. It just didn't make any sense to me.
I don't know.
That is a good point. But yeah, I like my score for it. I would say 7.5. I think that's pretty fair.
I think that's fair. I think I'd give it the exact same thing.
Yeah, 7.5.
Yeah, totally agree.
Thank you, Ryan. Okay, so the rest of it is, Ryan, did you watch Bly?
Yeah, totally.
He didn't watch Bly either.
I watched 20 minutes of the first episode.
Perfectly splendid.
Perfectly splendid. Okay, so we're gonna have to do a non-spoiler kind of wrap up of Bly Manor, because the three of us have kind of like finished this. I thought that this is a 9. Like, I give this, like, the whole season, the way that it wraps itself up, and the explanations of things that have happened, and the overall meaning of the story, I thought was amazing. I kind of like this season or this one a little bit better than Hill House, and maybe it's because I'm a hopeless romantic, but whatever. So I think it's 9.
I would say I'd give it a solid 8, maybe an 8.5. I agree with you. Mike Flanagan's thing and all of his projects have the same structure. They're really, really slow to start off. Like Dr. Sleep was incredibly slow. I remember I actually funny enough, I was nodding off during that movie. One, because it was really late when I watched it. It was like an 11 o'clock show, but it was like super slow for the development. And then towards the end, I was just like, whoa, this is amazing. I'm actually going to go back and rewatch it in the next couple of days. And then Hill House and Bly Manor are very much the same. I remember thinking, man, this is taking kind of a long time to get through these first 5 episodes. And then, we were talking about how the 6th episode is kind of the make or break. I'm like, if you've watched up until the 6th episode, you might as well just finish because the series is almost over at that point. So you might as well just be like, I'm finishing this race. But it finishes off really well. I like some of the story elements. I really wish I could say what my favorite part was. It's actually kind of odd that I like it, but I'm not going to say it. Ryan, you like Dr. Sleep, yes?
Yes. Oh yeah. I mean, I fully intend to actually watch this series.
Yes, you need to.
We're playing catch up with so many.
Right.
Trying to get through rewatching Rebels before the 30th, and we're still on Fargo's season 2 of 4 now that we're trying to get through. I mean, I've seen them before, but it's just the question of like trying to get stuff in. And I was like, do I have time for 8 hours this week? And
I get that. Yeah, we watched like 5 episodes in one night. We started like 7, and it's like, well, yeah, right, exactly. So, I mean, I totally get that. But, eventually you'll be like, why didn't I watch this sooner? I mean, because it's a fabulous ending. Gosh, and I'm like, I really want to say stuff, but I can't because you haven't seen it. But yeah,
what did you think?
Yeah. I'm not saying anything.
I'm sitting over here trying to figure out what score I want to give it because I didn't hate it, but I don't want my score to be lowered because I enjoyed Hill House more. I liked Hill House better than this, just mainly because this didn't have like kind of like a creeping terror to it. There was like terror going on in Hill House. This is more like there is one thing, around this house that is kind of scary, but it's not really known as much, I think, as Hill House. Hill House is more in your face. So I think I enjoyed that more. I wasn't a fan of the last, I don't know, the last 2 episodes kind of, which one's and I'm trying to be very vague here. Which one is black and white?
8.
Is that the next to last, or is that the one before?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought that was a little interesting to do that way. I don't know if I was a fan or not. I understood why, but I don't know. I'm gonna give it a 7.5. Just because I would give Hill House probably an 8.5. So, but that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I'm at that point in Hill House where I'm like on episode. I think we just finished episode 5 last night, so we got like kind of a pivotal point. So I don't know. I don't think I'm not right at this moment. We're gonna finish it. How many episodes is Hill House? 10.
Hill House, I think, is 10.
Yeah.
So right now, as it stands, I definitely enjoy Bly Manor more, but I'm at that point where I'm finally getting past the slow, the whole setup of, who's this person, why are they like this, and so on and so on. I'm finally getting the payoff. So, probably next week. I don't know. I think it'll still stand the same way, but Hill House is okay. I like Bly Manor more.
So here's what I can do for you guys. I can just mute you. You guys want to talk some spoilers? And just
No.
Raise your arms when you.
Nah, I think we've done okay without. We're good.
Hill House
we
is
can
10.
spoil it. We can spoil it next month. Next week, I mean.
Yeah. Okay. So Ryan, did you want to spit out some reviews that you watched this week before we get to our collective?
Yeah. I Thursday night went to see The Honest Thief or just Honest Thief with Liam Neeson. I forgot I watched it until I walked out of the theater Tuesday when I saw Kid Detective, and I saw the poster, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I watched another Liam Neeson movie." It was fine. It's entertaining. I'm almost past the point now where I'm like, "Hey, it's a movie. Go see it because it's in theaters." Because there are actually good movies in theaters right now. Um, they're just indie films, but this was okay. It tries really hard to be different, and somebody on the production team is like, no, have Liam Neeson make an intense phone call every 25 minutes in this movie. And threaten somebody on the phone during the last phone call. What's that? You don't have any explosions? Blow up a house. So someone on in that development process is trying really, really hard to make it more than it wants to be. But it's okay. There's some good things about it and some bad things about it. If you guys saw, because I know Liam Neeson's had like a ton of movies in the last couple of years, since Taken especially. But if you guys saw the movie Run All Night, it's about that level. I put it a step under, like, I think I said this in my review, but I think the movie A Walk Among the Tombstones was my favorite Liam Neeson movie of the last couple of years, other than maybe The Grey. And that one like tries really hard to be different, and I liked it. It's kind of a slow burn thriller. This one like wants to be at times and then just cannot make up its mind. So overall, it's okay. I think I gave it a 5 out of 10. It's a popcorn flick, so if you need something to watch, then you really don't want to see dry little indie films, then it's totally fine to go see it. But
is that the one, The Gray? Is that the one where he's like a snowplow man or something?
No, that's Cold Pursuit. The Gray is where he.
Oh.
They're very similar titles.
Yeah,
you can explain The Gray.
Cold Pursuit.
Okay.
Cold Pursuit is the remake of the Norwegian film An Order of Disappearance. The Gray is where he punches wolves.
Okay, that's why I was like, my disapproval nod, because I saw Cold Pursuit and I thought that sucked.
No, you'd like The Gray's good, man. I think you should check it out if you haven't seen it.
Okay, is that on anything like Netflix or Hulu?
I don't know.
I'll just have to go do some digging.
Just go out into Canada, find a pack of wolves, and try to get away from them, and you can live.
Oh, okay. I'll do that right away.
Yeah, highly recommend it. No, good movie. This was, Honest Thief was all right. So Jai Courtney's in it, so that's never a good thing. But
wow,
Jai Courtney's so boring. He's good in Suicide Squad. That's like the one thing he's good in. And Suicide Squad's not a good movie. The props one of the good things about that movie. Anyway, so Tuesday, went to see a movie called The Kid Detective. Knew very little about it. It is a drama comedy starring the likable brother from the movie Ready or Not, who's totally forgot the actor's name. I didn't really know anybody in it. I don't know the people who made it, but it is about this now adult who was a kid detective. So kind of like your typical neighborhood. He solves little crimes, and he could totally have a Nickelodeon show. They don't really go that kind of cartoonish comical route, but they do play on I don't know if you guys ever saw I don't know, any type of detective show where there's flashbacks like Psych. It kind of feels a little bit like that, like in his childhood, but now he's like a complete alcoholic who doesn't know what he's doing with his life, and he's got to solve a murder, and he's like completely underqualified to solve any crimes whatsoever. This is very funny. It's really dry as far as like the tone goes. It's a pretty blunt movie, but it's pretty fresh. And anybody who likes kind of murder mysteries but doesn't want to be too overwhelmed by visuals, it's no Sherlock Holmes as far as like the filming spectacular. But I really like the way it's made. It's shot and scored a lot like your typical like 40s noir without being too in your face about it. So that kind of works well with the detective-y feel to it. But he also makes all these stupid decisions over and over again that like real people would make. So it's pretty refreshing to watch. It's still got a couple cliches in it. The performance is really good, but the weirdest thing is like it ends on a really weird thematic tone that I'm still thinking through. So I don't know if that's a good thing or not. But definitely worth seeing, I think, for anybody who's up for kind of a washed up murder mystery. So,
This is Adam Brody.
Adam Brody, yes, great performance. So actually, I mean, it's a very well made movie all around. It's just I think it's the last finale. I'm still processing like what the heck the movie's trying to say at the end. Like the whole movie, I had it figured out, like what the point of the movie was. And by the end, I was like, oh, this is a little weird. But it's worth checking out. It's better than Honest Thief, and I don't think my typical indie recommendations are. I don't even know if Yellow Rose is still playing. I keep pushing that one, but
I'm sure it's still playing. Nothing else has come out, Ryan.
You're right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I think we've got like just horror films the next couple weeks.
Yeah, it's Yellow Rose is still playing.
Hey, wait, I always forget we had this conversation about movies coming out and Wonder Woman. Is Free Guy still scheduled?
Yep.
First week of December?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
First week in December. Yep.
No.
Yeah.
Hopefully that'll come out.
The Croods 2 was put on the Thanksgiving release schedule.
Dang it.
Not that I'm looking forward to it. That's at least a movie that's coming out that has theaters.
That's true.
Man, I can't wait to see a sequel to a film that came out 10 years ago. And I'm not talking about Avatar.
I don't want to see that either. Okay. Well, thank you, Ryan. Some new movies and stuff. Okay. So this week we collectively watched The Trial of the Chicago 7 by Aaron Sorkin, starring Sacha Baron Cohen, Eddie Redmayne, Jessica Gordon-Levitt, and Jeremy Strong, isn't it? Didn't know that. It is about the trial of 7 individuals that have descended upon Chicago in 1968, in the summer of 1968, for the Democratic presidential election or convention.
National convention.
Yeah, the national convention. Thank you, Matt. So they descend upon it, trying not to be violent, and somehow protests and riots ensue, and these 7 are put on trial. So what did you guys think? Anybody?
I'll go first. Let me go first. I'll go ahead. I thought I like courtroom dramas just as much as the next person. And I like this one. It's funny enough, Sacha Baron Cohen, and I told you guys, was actually my favorite thing about this movie because I don't know, his character was funny, he was real, relatable. I mean, obviously he was Abby Hoffman, and he looked like the character. Like I had to go back and just remind myself what the original guy looked like, and I'm like, he looks spot on, almost just like him, and to me personally. So that he was my favorite, point in the entire movie. He was funny, and then he had those kind of like surreal moments, just much like the original man did. The most frustrating part of this movie, and I think it was by design, so I can't judge it too harshly, is the judge obviously being like he's harsh and not very accommodating to the defense attorneys and their whole plea for, hey, these guys didn't start the police riots, they were just going to protest peacefully, even though they didn't have any permits granted to them, and so on and so on. I like the story, and I'm not much of a history buff myself, not nearly as much as like Clint or Matt are, but I thought it was very interesting, and I like movies like this that don't complicate the plot too much, but they give you enough where you think you're you're learning something, and it's pretty interesting. I liked it overall. There was something negative about it that I was just like, I'll have to come back to it another time. But Overall, I wasn't in love with it. I thought it was it was definitely decent. I would never I didn't regret watching it by any means. I really enjoyed it, but I didn't fall in love with it. I'd say a 7.5, 7 is definitely fair for me. I thought what's the guy? I always forget his name. He's the guy who's Newt Scamander in the
Eddie Redmayne.
Yes, thank you. I always know Eddie. Yes, there you go. Nice pop figure, Ryan. Yeah, I thought I had to look up if he was British, like official, like because I didn't know if he was actually British or if he just because of Harry Potter. But he is British, and I was like, his American accent's okay. He played Tom Hayden, and he was the acting in this was sublime. That's easily like what anybody can take out of this movie. I mean, I was a little. I mean, Joseph Gordon-Levitt being the opposition prosecutor, kind of being on the U.S. defense attorney's, kind of party. He can't be involved that much. I was a little disappointed he wasn't more because I actually really enjoyed, what little he was in, like from the get-go. I was like, I believe he's speaking the jargon, well, and he's personifying, an attorney and prosecutor very, very well. So I was a little disappointed he wasn't involved a little bit more, but I understand why. Yeah, so it overall, I definitely enjoyed it, and I would recommend it. I just wouldn't say this blew me away. It was, it's definitely one of the better movies we've watched by far. So, I mean, maybe my score will go to an 8. Somebody presents, a little bit more that I didn't think of. So 7.5, I'll stick with that. Pretty good. Yeah.
I pretty much agree with a lot that you said. This movie is interesting. I don't know if any of you guys have read the history of this movie, that it's been in production for like 13 years. Like he's wanted to make this. The script has been around, or the idea of the script has been around since 2007. This film has had people attached to it like Seth Rogen and Will Smith. And this is like another fun fact though, Sacha Baron Cohen actually has been attached to this since this movie was like initiated as a script, because he was always there like, wow, you really look like that guy. And he was fresh off of Borat and Bruno. So they're like, you're going to be this guy. So he's been here for the whole ride.
Wow.
But yeah, if you want to look that up, just go to Wikipedia and you can just read all about it. It's kind of interesting. Everything this movie's good. I mean, the script is good. The editing is phenomenal. I love the beginning sequence. And that has to do a lot with Sorkin's writing. All the performances were great. I don't really think there was a weak link in everybody. I know I texted you guys, and Alex, you said you hated the character, but I think the judge actually did an amazing job. Skeletor himself, Frank Langella, killed it as that judge, and I thought that was great. Eddie Redmayne's accent was phenomenal. I didn't have any problem with that whatsoever. Sacha Baron Cohen was great too. I mean, it wasn't a stretch. I mean, his accent was probably the hardest stretch, but he does characters all the time, so I really don't think it was a problem for him. And plus, the character he was playing is probably kind of similar to how he acts in real life anyway. So it was fairly easy for him. The only things that didn't bump this up for me, and I'm going to go ahead and say I gave it. And brace yourself, guys. Everything that I watched this week that we reviewed, I liked. What is going on here? I didn't hate anything, and we didn't knock everything down with the 5s. But I gave this a 7.5 because a couple things. I know it's a courtroom drama. But there wasn't. I don't know. There wasn't anything too. I don't know. Tense. Well, I guess maybe the one scene where the guy gets tied up, but it didn't seem too tense to me at times. Also, I wasn't really impressed with the scoring, and I don't know if that is something. I know, just nothing stands out to me. But maybe that's the point. If nothing stands out, maybe it's doing its good job. So who knows? I also didn't like the editing of the ending of the film. And I don't know why it cuts the way it cuts or why they decided. And I kind of want to ask Sorkin why he did it, but I just feel like for a film that was very fluid with letting time go by, and you get to this one pivotal point, and then you fade out and come back in, and then you hit your climax. I don't know if that's a spoiler. I'm being pretty vague. It didn't hit properly for me, and I don't know if that was its intent, but it just kind of left a poor taste in my mouth, and that alone probably knocked it down at least half a point, maybe even a point for me. But everything else was solid. I can't really hate on much for it. Anything else. I love the performances, and it wouldn't be a production meeting if we didn't review a Joseph Gordon-Levitt movie. So
well, before they get to their reviews, I want to, what you were talking about with the judge, that was kind of where my brain was going with the frustratingness of his acting along with everybody else's was great. That's not the problem. It's that or rather lack of, an establishing tense moment, because he's always like, object, overrule, sustain, all that, and he's never letting, I was watching it going, oh man, this is finally going to be that scene where there's like that 5 to 7 minute kind of scene where you see a boil over point, and I was like, okay, fine, and then you're like, this guy keeps interrupting, and the judge keeps saying, you're held in contempt, and it just that was the frustrating part, not his acting. It was just so frustrating that you couldn't, anytime momentum started, it got stalled very quickly. And that's, while that did happen, I still enjoyed the scenes very much. What could have been is what it really boils down to. So
it's all on you, Ryan.
Alex, I'm gonna take a hard disagree with you on that. I think that, I thought the entire film was pretty brilliant. I have a couple problems with it, and I agree with you guys. One of my problems was actually the finale. I think that film has a masterful control of its tone, and I don't think there was a single time until the end where I wasn't feeling something that I wasn't supposed to be feeling, but I was feeling everything that I was supposed to be feeling. And I think part of that goes to the way they treat the pacing of a courtroom drama. You get comedy really early on in the movie. And that's Sacha Baron Cohen's incredible, so it wouldn't have worked without him. I laughed a lot, and then suddenly I stopped laughing because I realized the situation they're in isn't funny. And then I would sit and be really tense, and then I would be like, okay, well, this will be the time where they all get to stand up and have a dramatic monologue, and he would cut them off, and I'd be like, well, crap, we kind of need this moment of tension for either. But I love the way. This is a really mild thing, but I guess it's technically a spoiler. But I love the way that you get the judge's introduction as an awful person by interrupting the prosecutor. And
oh yeah, really.
And I'm like, dude, you guys are on the same side, and you're just so awful that you're going to interrupt the person making the case. And of course, it's Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Really smart casting to have an actor that the audience can like, as a character we can like, from a stance we can disagree with.
Right.
And I loved the way they play with that character dynamic. But I think it's really, really incredible control over the tone of the film by having Frank Langella interject it every single time you're supposed to be feeling something that they're supposed to be feeling, and it derails it, and then somebody just explodes. So you get this outburst from somebody because of him, and it's exactly what they want to happen. And so you get like your build up, and then you stop, and you're like, well, crap, now I can't let off all this tension. And then he yells at, he has some interjection, and then someone gets in trouble really quick. And I'm like, well, that's, not how it was supposed to go. I thought it was great. And I think Frank Langella of all the cast deserves an Oscar nomination first. I don't even know. I know he has one or two, but I think he's often a little underrated. I love his Dracula. So I think he absolutely deserves an Oscar nomination, if not a lot of the cast. I know they don't really give Oscar nods to ensemble casts like that, so we'll see. Love the writing. I won't get too much into that because I'm a sucker for Aaron Sorkin's writing a lot. I love his dialogue writing and the way he plays with casual, light lines that also have a lot of depth to them, where you're in an interview and the interview asks something and he's like, well, you've stated that question in the form of a lie, and I'm like, oh, that's a funny line, but it's also exactly what they're up against. You get that a lot in The Social Network, where you get a lot of depth into things that seem trivial. So that's a really good way to mask like how you treat dialogue, but also get your point across in the story. I think there's one moment that it doesn't work, and it's probably because I don't know the true story that well. But there's one scene where it feels like they're justifying the words of something that was said that definitely helped incite these riots, and I was like, I wonder how true that is, or if it's just really clever writing. But I think, Matt, what you said about the editing, I think the editing is by far the best thing about it. The use of crosscuts, I think, was even done better than Nolan did it this year. And it's something that's why I set these two out, because I love The Social Network, but the more creative control Sorkin has over like his cutting ability lets, I think, his writing shine even a little bit more beyond like David Fincher's direction. And I think, I wasn't as big a fan of Molly's Game, which I know he directed, as I was of this one. I think he did a really good job directing and playing with using the crosscuts to incite that pacing, because you don't get like these long drawn out moments of tension in a courtroom. Instead, you're stuck between three different scenes, all building to a finale that you can't avoid, but you already know what happens. Right. Really, really good. Good work as far as getting emotionally involved, till right at the end. Matt, I agree with you. I thought as soon as it faded, I was like, that was a really strange choice. And it was like it faded and faded back into a typical ending. And I liked the ending a lot, but I would have liked it in a normal movie. And I would have preferred something a little more exceptional for what I considered an exceptional movie, where it was like, oh, we're just kind of, I won't give away how it ends, but it felt like a very typical ending. A moving ending, but I think a little bit underwhelming. It kind of felt like they just didn't know where else to go with it by the end. I've talked enough. Great movie. Really great. I gave it a 9 out of 10 a couple minutes into the movie, and I never changed it. Because Sacha Baron Cohen made me pause the movie to stop laughing, just with a quick one line. I'm glad it was on Netflix. Actually, that was the one thing where I was like, crap, I would have been laughing too much to distract. And I just wasn't expecting it to be funny. I was expecting just a drama, straightforward. And I laughed quite a bit throughout that entire movie. Mark Rylance was really great. Watching him just constantly bite his tongue. Yeah. Really great work. So I think it's up there. I have not decided if it's my favorite film of the year or not yet. But it's up there in my top 2.
A lot of those points are pretty fair. Like, I remember thinking, when you were saying Joseph Gordon-Levitt, being such a appealing actor to play, a not controversial, but, an opposing side, which, is not the side you should be with technically. That's the whole point, but it's an effective casting choice, and it's smart. So I still, you make a lot of really good points. But some of the things that you liked are probably the things that I just had to nitpick about. So we just see them differently. And that's just kind of what it boils down to. So I'll stick at a 7.5, but I think that you make a lot of really good points. Also, I may cut out of this video. I don't know. My phone is at 10% right now. So, if I do disappear, it's not because I got bored and left. It's just because my phone, and I don't have a laptop right now. So go ahead, Clint.
Okay. Well, I'm going to give this about an 8.5. I think, as you were saying, Ryan and Alex, with Joseph Gordon-Levitt, like you're kind of introduced as this character that is supposed to be like on the opposite side, but like right off the bat, like you kind of figure that this guy's not with the full program. Like there's that whole scene where he's like, I don't think that this is, like, he basically tells him like, I don't think this is right. Like, they shouldn't be like prosecuted for this or whatever, but I'll win the case, because that's what you're paying me to do. So I think there's, besides the judge, there's no real kind of character in here that you kind of dislike. And Frank Langella is amazing as this judge, because like I haven't had to pause the movie just go, what the fuck is this guy's problem? Like I'm just like I was just like, okay, and all the characters like you kind of feel sympathy for, and I think that it was the betterment of this movie that it wasn't like A Few Good Men, where it's just like it's a strict courtroom drama, and it cut it the way that like that you break up that tension because it's like you start to get kind of bored with it, and then it starts to show different aspects of what really happened in different points of view and things like that. There's only like two things that kind of like annoy me with this. One is that if they were going to use Abby Hoffman as like the narrator, then I think that they probably should have stuck with that, because I just didn't like how like he would narrate a little bit of it and then somebody else would narrate a little bit of it and everything, and maybe that was just the point of views of like what was going on. But yeah, I just didn't think that. And the other thing is like this movie is probably made for people that knew like what was going on. If that makes sense. Like because you're not really given like a lot of information on like what really happened. Like it's just like the secondhand story of what went down. Um and again, maybe that's like a betterment to the movie, so that like, you like if you don't know what's happening, you kind of like understand a little bit more like what's going on. But I don't know, strong acting. I thought it was cut really well. Um, so yeah, I think Sacha Baron Cohen was probably my favorite part of this whole movie. So
Yeah.
That's good. That's just the ending, and God, it bothers me so much because I really enjoyed this movie up until that point. Like, but I think what you said, Ryan, about how he makes it so that you can't get in a rhythm. Like you wait for something good to happen and then it abruptly hits. And I think that kind of what happens at the end of this movie too, is they want to keep that pacing off a little bit. Of course, it could also be that Sorkin was like, I can't really write a crescendo for this because there isn't a crescendo to be had, and I don't want to make something up right here. So we'll leave it very ambiguous and then, show what happened to those people. And if, he read all those names out loud, then that's a great way to end your film. So,
yeah.
Yeah, everyone pulled their weight in here, man. That's all.
Yeah.
I think what could have been, I mean, obviously they didn't want to end on a comic note. I don't think it would have been smart to end on a laugh. It would have been entertaining to quick cut to the things that it follows up with. But again, that's probably to the detriment of the tone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. I forgot to segue in an age joke, and I was going to say, Matt, you were there, or something like that.
You should know what happens.
I was on trial.
Right.
I really, really like Daniel Pemberton's score. I've listened to the whole thing twice now. I listened to the whole thing again today because I knew we were going to talk about it tonight. And I just had it prepped in my mind. And I don't love every piece of it. I think there's some really good momentum in it. I think a lot of the pieces that he uses for like tension building work really well. It reminded me. I mean, I know. As far as instrumentation goes, it's nothing alike. But it reminded me of the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance soundtrack, where he does building themes and momentum really well. So it kind of gives a lot of those quick cuts like a drive when they're building to like the first riot sequence and stuff like that. But I think there's a couple pieces that don't work just quite as well. They're not memorable. So I think that's where.
I think that's what I wanted. I wanted something like I wanted a hook. I wanted something in there that that
John Williams.
Kind of, yeah.
even like Pemberton's score from Steve Jobs, really really good work. I was humming that after the film, and there's never a dull moment. He does the different eras really well and does different instrumentation. And in this, when the movie needs to take a breather, you don't have the advantage of playing an Apple Store music kind of feel to it. He just has to kind of fill drama, and so you get moments that are really great in the movie, like without giving too much away, but the really really tense sequence with their eighth trial.
Yeah.
And the score kind of really doesn't get a chance to shine there that much. in some scenes like that. I think that's where Pemberton, because he's a relatively fresh composer. Last 6 years, he's become pretty well known. So I think that's probably where he just needs to get a little more experience, where Williams can make that stuff kind of really memorable.
I also think Sorkin did a really good job, and you know, these characters are obviously were real people, but I think he really did a good job at like flushing or, you know, making these characters, even though some of them were similar, but expressly distinct with the way that they were handling everything.
Yeah.
And that was kind of fresh. And I liked having those different viewpoints and the way everyone distinctly acted differently for everything. No one got really left out, and they all had their time, you know, to shine, or at least focused on them, just so you could see. And I thought that was great. And I thought he handled the timing of the film and putting those people in there together really well. So, I mean, he'll probably get a nomination for the script, I think.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So, yeah.
All right, so that was the Trial of the Chicago 7. Next week we have a couple things coming out. Rebecca on Netflix by Ben Wheatley.
I saw that. I was going to throw that one out there if you weren't going to. I'm interested in that one.
I watched the original 1940 Hitchcock one just a couple weeks ago, before I knew the film existed.
Yeah, I have the Criterion Collection version.
Me too.
Very interesting. Yeah. Or The Witches on HBO Max.
Well, I'm gonna watch
crickets in the background.
I'm gonna watch The Witches regardless, so I will watch both if we need to. I'm excited, man. The Witches was my jam.
Robert Zemeckis too.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't want to suggest this one, but I'm gonna throw it out there because what's today? The 21st now. So Borat 2 is coming out this Friday on Amazon Prime. I'm not advocating that. I'm just saying that's an option. I don't want to watch it. I just, felt I should throw it out there.
All right.
I think Borat actually comes out on the 26th.
Yeah.
Oh, is it? Oh, I thought it was the 23rd.
Friday.
My bad. Okay, then we're not doing that.
Or not Friday. I was gonna say, well, I guess I'll bite the bullet and do that one too. I'm just kidding. I'm gonna watch Borat.
Third.
Yeah, it was like you're gonna watch it anyway.
I'm gonna watch it anyway.
Alex, you're right. It's the 23rd.
Okay, so not that I'm gonna watch it. It doesn't matter when it comes out.
You have to now.
This is nice.
We are also going to see The Empty Man tomorrow night.
Can I come?
Well, we got tickets for it.
Yeah, you can go.
All right.
I personally am leaning a little bit more towards Rebecca because I enjoy the Hitchcock film. That's probably going to be a detriment to my grading of it, but yeah, I'm trying to get this Netflix money, so it's gonna be like the fourth movie in a row that we reviewed that was from Netflix.
Well, I remember, even though because not all of us have Apple TV Plus, I was hesitant to suggest On the Rocks with Rashida Jones and Bill Murray. So I'll be watching that, but
I might finally have to break that seal to watch that, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's a Sofia Coppola, so I'm kind of excited. All right, Rebecca.
Sounds like man. Rebecca's the winner.
Can't wait to see some Army Hammer.
A remake of a Best Picture nominee or Best Picture winner. What could go wrong?
Well, I feel like it's funny that you were like, we've watched 4 Netflix movies back to back to back to back, and I'm sitting here like an hour ago arguing that Disney doesn't need like new content on their site.
Yeah, because what is the one recent one that we've done? Ivan the One and Great?
Yeah, the one and only Ivan.
Yeah.
Don't forget Artemis Fowl.
No, Ryan.
Oh my gosh.
Stop this.
I'm going to bring it up every week.
We went 2 hours with that.
I'm starting to think that Ryan thinks that movie is fantastic.
It's actually another one of my top 2 of the year.
If they had put The Rock in as Artemis Fowl, would the movie have been better or worse?
10 times better. 10 times better. And just doing the same Josh Gad voice.
Yeah, Josh Gad should have been the acorn.
I would put that up there, right up beside the first 6 minutes of Adam Sandler's best movie of 2020. Yeah, some great movies.
Yeah. Well, I even think that, like, HBO Max had like a better launch than Disney Plus. So, sorry. All right. Netflix's Rebecca. Netflix, we're sponsoring all your stuff. Like, we're watching all your stuff. Next week, Rebecca. Anything else, guys?
No, man. We're already at 2 hours. We've been running long tonight.
Yeah, I gotta figure out a way to edit these down.
Don't bring up Star Wars or Dwayne Johnson.
I'm sorry, I went on a tangent. My bad. It's okay.
All right, guys. Until next week. See y'all later.